When you think about sustainability improvements in operations, do you think about projects such as installing LED lighting or switching to renewable energy? Or do you think about reducing waste in the operations of your plant? The reality is, all three can make a difference. But how do you quantify which improvement will have the biggest impact? The impact of traditional sustainability improvements such as lighting or energy sources is fairly well understood, whereas the impact of operations improvements can be more challenging to imagine and quantify. To give an example of how an operational improvement can be quantified, let's take the impact on emissions of reducing waste at a coffee production facility. The facility that roasts coffee beans tends to burn about 20% of the processed beans. If this was reduced, you would be able to save the emissions that went into creating each pound of waste. To fully understand the environmental impact, we can look at emissions from three simplified stages: the energy used to cultivate and harvest the beans, the energy used to transport the beans, and finally, the energy used in the processing of the beans. If we look at cultivating coffee beans, we notice that this requires fertilizer. This increases the amount of nitrogen in the soil, which produces nitrous oxide. When we look at transporting the beans, we'll notice that heavy vehicles produce a variety of gases, including carbon dioxide and methane. Finally, we know that the oven is powered by the combustion of natural gas, which we'll assume emits mostly carbon dioxide. So how can we make an apples-to-apples comparison about the impact of each process when they emit different forms of greenhouse gases? First, we can quantify the mass of greenhouse gas emissions for each of the three processes. However, in order to finish the comparison, we will need to convert each gas to its equivalent weight in CO2 using its global warming potential. Multiplying the mass of the different emissions from each process by their warming potential will produce their equivalent weights in CO2. Combining these CO2 equivalent weights then allows us to quantify the emissions reduction potential for a given quantity of coffee beans. Finally, we can use this combined CO2e value to compare the impact of reducing waste to other environmental initiatives to see where our efforts are best spent. If you are looking for ways to improve your operations and your environmental impact, you likely have opportunities to tackle both in the same projects. Want to learn more or understand which projects of yours are most valuable? Give us a call or reach out to us online.